you are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next, the July 25th meeting of the Michigan City Plan Commission. You can get more information for this meeting by going to www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, July 25th, 2023, and it's 6:05. This is the regular meeting of the Michigan City Plan Commission. First item of business is roll call.
Mr. Balling.
Here.
Mr. Dabney.
Present.
Mr. Granquist.
Here.
Mr. Klender.
Here.
Mr. Latchford.
Here.
Miss Mile.
Here.
Miss Tieta is absent. Mr. Zimmer.
Here.
And Attorney Hale.
Here.
We do have a quorum tonight.
Thank you, Mr. York. Next item is the approval of the agenda for this evening. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Balling.
Yes.
Mr. Dabney.
Yes.
Mr. Granquist.
Yes.
Mr. Klender.
Yes.
Mr. Latchford.
Yes.
Miss Mile.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmer.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item is to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was June 27th.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
on page 4 of the minutes in the last paragraph, the minutes refer to some statements that Mr. York was making in response to Commissioner Ameli's comments. And in it, the minutes state that Mr. York stated that he would be, and I'm going to quote, willing to rezone the building next door. And I know it's perhaps a minor point, but Mr. York does not have the ability to rezone property. You do. And I would suggest that we correct the minutes so that would be that Mr. York says he would be willing to support a rezoning of the building next door and delete the word rezone.
I agree. Any other comments, Mr. Hale?
No.
Okay, thanks. I assume Debbie got that, so we'll make that change and then bring these back for approval next month. Or do you want to approve it now with the change?
I think you can approve it subject to the change.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve subject to that change?
So moved.
And I second.
Call for the vote. Mr. Balling.
Yes.
Mr. Dabney.
Aye.
Mr. Granquist.
Yes.
Mr. Klender.
Yes.
Mr. Latchford.
Yes.
Miss Mile.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmer.
Yes.
Okay, motion approved.
Our first petition this evening, 901-23. How do we want to proceed?
Would you like for me to read it? Just read it into the record.
Sure.
I can do that.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Tonight we have a request by Mr. Mike West and Green Development Ventures LLC for final plat approval of a 112 major subdivision, Woodland Ridge subdivision, for residential development on approximately 32 acres of land located at 4842 North 900 West in Michigan City, Indiana. And I'm going to hand the floor over to Mr. Ruby and Mr. West. So tonight is the secondary plat approval. I've been working, I'll fill in some blanks and then I'll hand it over to them. I've been working with Mr. Ruby to finalize construction drawings, which have been circulated to all the departments at this point in time. Water and sewer have responded back that they feel that these meet the standards and what they've been talking about. I'll summarize all that in my report as well. But at this time, I'm going to hand it over to The other thing we've been working on is a development agreement for the infrastructure improvements to go along with this secondary plat approval. We'll read through that as well, but I'm going to hand the floor over to Mr. Ruby now in case you guys have any questions or comments or things of that nature. Does that sound okay?
Did you say that this is secondary or final?
This is final, secondary, yes.
Okay.
Same.
Same. Okay.
Yep. Some people call it final, some people call it secondary. I think
Okay.
we refer to it as secondary.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Mike West with Green Development Ventures and Alan Edwin Homes at 2186 East Center Avenue in Portage, Michigan. As Skylar indicated, also with me this evening is Steve Ruby with Abin Marsh. He's our engineer for the project. Roughly 2 months ago, we were in front of you for primary plat approval. We received that back on March 23rd. I'm sorry, May 23rd. Included 4 conditions, and we've since incorporated those 4 conditions into the final design with the secondary plat. We received a copy of Skylar's staff report today. We have no problems with the recommended conditions of approval. We have been working with the administration to finalize the construction drawings as well as this infrastructure agreement. And we'd still like to shoot for trying to be under construction later this year. So that's our goal, is to still shoot for a late fall construction. If that doesn't happen, it'll be spring. So if you have any questions, try to answer them for you, or Mr. Ruby can answer them.
Can you just comment about whether or not there's any changes we should be focusing on the?
No, I mean, the design has stayed the same. The only thing from the condition from the primary plat is I think there was a desire to have the park incorporated into phase 1. So we modified the phasing lines to include that in phase 1. But other than that, the design has stayed the same. Number of lots, layout, everything.
Thank you.
Miss.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Mr. York, why don't you give your report, and then Mr. Hale, and then we'll see if there's any other comments.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that might help lead a discussion. So this is Michigan City Plan Commission, July 25th, 2023, case number 90123, Woodland Ridge. This is actually secondary plat approval. Sorry, I left primary in there. My bad. This is a Woodland Ridge subdivision, secondary plat approval. The request is for secondary plat approval of a major subdivision. Staff analysis: the land in question is 32 acres of vacant land located along South Woodland Ave, which is known locally as North 950 West, if I'm not mistaken, and Paz Road. The land is zoned R1C, single family residential, and is currently being used for agricultural uses. On May 23rd, 2023, the Michigan City Plan Commission gave primary plat approval for the new subdivision with the following modifications and conditions. You might recall the modifications. We gave a sidewalk waiver for South Woodland Ave, and the Woodland Ridge subdivision shall provide for sidewalks to be constructed on one side of each internal street, not both sides, and shall be connected to provide for continuous walkway between street intersections. Modification number 2 was the size of the required park area to require a 1/3 acre park in lieu of the required 2.6 acre park as shown on primary plat. And then we followed that up with the following conditions: sanitary easement be granted along South Woodland Ave. Work with the city engineer and planning department on a street lighting plan, which will be incorporated into secondary plat. The final declaration shall include a provision that the purchasers of all subsequent lot and all subsequent lot owners shall be required to plant and maintain and replace at least one tree in the front yard, and that the association of owners shall be required to maintain the common park area. The park shall be built in the first phase of the development. At this time, I've had our city engineer and sanitary engineers and the water department engineer review the proposed construction documents. They've all responded back that they're happy with the construction documents as submitted, and that they meet the qualifications that have been discussed in their meetings. I know Mr. Ruby's had numerous discussions with them and his staff as well. So the staff recommendation is as follows. Staff recommends approval of the secondary plat with the following three conditions. The modification and conditions remain as requirements for approval of secondary plat, meaning the modifications and conditions that we approved in the first primary plat, which I just read them. The final review of the HOA documents and owner provides proof of incorporation. We want to make sure that we have proof of that incorporation to make sure that the HOA is incorporated. And typically what happens is that HOA hits a certain density and then the HOA actually kicks in and it's handed over to the homeowners. At least that's the way we see it in other developments. So we want to make sure that happens. We also want to have final review of that document because we want to make sure that the plantings are involved in that and that the park is covered as well as taking care of that. And then the final condition is that the plan director approval and recording of the subdivision improvement agreement. And with that, I'm going to kind of lead into the subdivision approval agreement, and I'm going to read that and just kind of talk a little bit about what the subdivision agreement is. Actually, I'm going to let Steve Hill talk a little bit about that, what that is, if that's okay.
Sure.
And then I can read it. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Well, why don't I just give my report?
Absolutely.
Which includes that. It's for petition number 901-23, sub 2. The petitioner, Mike West, Green Development Ventures, LLC, and the owners, Elizabeth J. Pio and Robert E. Johnson, Jr., the engineer surveyors, Avon Marsh Consultants. And tonight, the request is for secondary plat approval for the project at 4842 North, 900 West here in Michigan City. It's been stated twice now that this body provided primary plat approval on May 23rd. The next step is what is sometimes referred to as final plat approval, but our ordinance refers to it, and we refer to it as secondary plat. They're both the same. So secondary plat approval is final plat approval. Mr. York went over the modifications which were requested by the petitioner and which you granted at the May 23rd, 2023 approval of primary plat. And the conditions are to be and have been incorporated into the secondary plat. The primary plat provides for, and the secondary plat follows up with the notion that this project will be developed in stages. Phase 1 includes both acquisition and infrastructure construction. Phase 2, 3, and 4 relate to the various sections that are shown on the documents that you have that were supplied by the petitioner. What we anticipate then is that there will be a time when Phase 2, the first development of actual homes, will be approved.
Okay, where were we? Oh yeah, my question.
This is Steve Hale, attorney for the Plan Commission. Mr. York and I have authored this improvement agreement, but we would like your approval to allow us to make some minor modifications and improvements to that agreement as part of your approval if you see fit. And that was his question to me, and that's my request of you when you consider that agreement. And we can go back now to Mr. York, who was giving his report and discussing that agreement.
Yeah, I think we have, with respect to the development agreement, I feel like we have all of the bases covered with respect to ensuring that first are completed. I think the city's protected. Brad Minnick helped set in with us, as well as the developers. We sat in a room and talked through this. I think we've captured everything in there, but I'm just thinking there might be some I's to dot and T's to cross, and if that'd be okay, should I read it into? Yes. Mr. President, would you like for me to read the development agreement and as it stands right now? Okay. Do you want me to? Would you like for me to? Yeah. Okay.
Just to say that you have a copy and.
Yeah, you guys have a copy and understand, and then we're not gonna make major modification. Like I said, we'll just cross T's and dot I's and get it signed and get it approved. The idea is that this would be recorded with the plat as well, so it travels with it through title searches, things of that nature. So, okay. I'm sorry. Oh, I moved the mic. Sorry about that.
Okay. So, Mr. Hale, do we need for you to clarify again, though, what you want us to put in the motion to approve?
No, I think you can ask if the board has any more questions or comments. Then you should open it up for public comment.
Okay.
And then you can consider it a motion. And the motion will be first to approve the secondary plat, and then a separate motion to approve the improvement agreement.
Okay. All right. So at this point, are there any questions or comments from members of the Plan Commission? Okay.
The first modification is the size of the required park, and it is reduced in size to 1/3 of an acre as opposed to the 2.6 acre. Is that because before the area to the north, I think that was south, that was kind of the drainage area was considered the park?
No, it can't be used as a park, but the requirement of our code was that you had to provide, I can't remember the requirements. I think, yeah, it was 2.6 acres, but it was based upon the calculation of the number of lots. And at the time, we thought that would be overbearing. It would basically take away the 2.6 acres would be taking away the economic value to the developer. They didn't want to, basically, they're not going to develop if they can't subdivide this many lots. It doesn't pencil out. But we still want a park there, right? So we asked for the modification to waive it down to a smaller park. They've done this in other areas with larger subdivisions, and that 1/4 or that 1/3 of an acre seemed to be fitting that development size. But theoretically, you still have the drainage area. It's going to be a natural area, but you can't call it the park.
Let's drive it.
Absolutely. That's kind of the thought, I think. So is that, I don't know if I answered your question completely.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding this petition from commission members? Okay. I'm going to open up to the public for public comment. Is there any public comment regarding this petition?
Oh, yeah. Forgot. Yeah, you're.
Thank you, Skylar.
You're very welcome.
Michigan City Mayor Dwayne Perry, Mr. President, Commission members. I have reviewed this project in depth with Mr. York. This project satisfies a serious need for housing that has existed for a long time in Michigan City. I feel very strongly that it's a win-win for all involved. The last project that we enjoyed of this nature was 1955 when Village Green was built. We're developing housing for all incomes, for all types of people. And this is truly a major component in this. So I support this 100%, and I respectfully request that this commission do the same. Thank you.
Public comment is still open.
Okay. Public comment period is closed. At this point, then we are ready to entertain a motion. The first motion being the approval of the secondary plat. Whoever's going to make the motion, I got to hand you the.
I'll make the motion to approve the secondary plat as compliant with the primary plat.
And I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Skylar? Here's your mic.
Sorry, I keep wanting to turn on the mic. Okay, so I'm going to call the roll. Oh, this is really awkward. The roll, Mr. Balling?
Yes.
Mr. Dabney, speak up.
Yes.
Mr. Granquist?
Yes.
Mr. Klinder?
Yes.
Mr. Latchford?
Yes.
Miss Mealy?
Yes.
And Mr. Zimmer?
Yes.
Motion approved. Development. Agreement. I think our next motion is for the development agreement. And I'll hold this up.
Just go ahead and say this.
So we'll entertain a motion for, the second piece of this is a motion for the approval of, the subdivision development improvement agreement. Subject to, final review and modification and review by, final modification and review by the plan director and attorney, Hale. That's a first by, Mr. Latchford.
Support.
And support by Councilman Dabney. I'll call for the vote. Mr. Balling,
Yes.
Mr. Dabney,
Yes.
Mr. Granquist,
Yes.
Mr. Klender.
Yes.
Wait a second, I missed somebody. Mr. Latchford,
Yes.
Miss Mealy,
Yes.
and Mr. Zimmer.
Yes.
Motion approved. Thank you guys for sticking with us and hanging in there. Mr. Ruby, I'll get back with you tomorrow, in the morning. Some finalized and things of that nature. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Sorry for all the technical difficulties.
Okay, so our next item of business is petition 900-23-4. Who's here to speak to that? Read it. Oh, okay. It's a request for final plat approval of a major subdivision known as Beach Walk Phase 3B PUD Quezon Park, referred to as WP 21 lots, consisting of approximately 2.71 acres to be subdivided and developed as 14 lots. They are being represented by attorney Christopher Willoughby.
And then I will recuse to avoid conflict of interest.
Okay. Mr. Granquist is recusing himself because of conflict of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Granquist. I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Willoughby.
Thank you, sir. Christopher Willoughby, Brady Nelson and James, 2026 East 5th Street. Here on behalf of the petitioners for this evening, Beach Walk Property Owners Association, Inc. and WP 21 LLC. for the last piece of this. We've been before you for several months, and I want to recognize Global Engineering, and I have with me tonight Hashem Khalil, who has put in some extraordinary work to make this happen. He came in pinch hitting after the unfortunate passing of Mr. Doyle. And so there's been a lot of work and a lot of timely work to make this happen, and a lot of cooperation, and certainly a lot of patience and approvals from this plan commission, the Common Council. So we're here for the last piece, which is, more check the box than not, but you have before you the final plat that we seek to have approved, and we believe that it substantially conforms to the approved primary plat, and otherwise substantially materially meets the requirements of the subdivision code. And I believe that everything is in order, that the plans we've worked with the planning department, and based on our submissions and subject to the recommendation of Mr. York, as well as a proposed performance bond, we believe that we are in order and in good shape to ask respectfully that you approve our final plat this evening. And I will certainly defer to you and any technical questions to Mr. Khalil.
Thank you, Mr. Willoughby. Skylar will give his report, then Mr. Hale, and then we'll take questions.
This is a report for this is July 25th, 2023. This is case number 900-23. This is an amendment to Beach Walk 3B, also known as Beechwood subdivision originally. This is for secondary plat approval. The request is for secondary plat approval, staff analysis. The property in question is currently undeveloped. The underlying zoning is R1E, Waterfront Residential District. The land immediately adjacent to the east is M2, Heavy Industrial zoning, and north, south, and west is zoned R1E, Single Family Residential. The land with the new residential lots has been previously subdivided through the Plan Commission in 2022, and now is actually the subject of, is actually approved as a PUD. So it's actually got an overlay zone on top of it as of right now, since the approval was given by council. This is just the final piece of that PUD. The developer proposing to develop single family homes at this location is now proposing to subdivide and be added into Beach Walk PUD. On March 28th, 2023, the Michigan City Plan Commission granted approval of the 14-lot subdivision primary plat and a favorable recommendation to the Michigan City Common Council for 2023. The Michigan City Common Council approved the amendment to the Beach Walk PUD. So tonight, the petitioner is submitting a request for secondary plat approval and has submitted a recommendation for a performance bond required to complete the remaining infrastructure at this location. This recommendation has been submitted by a qualified engineer and has been reviewed by the city engineer for costs. And I talked to Brad Minnick before this meeting, and he recommended that it's acceptable from city engineering standpoint. The staff recommendations. The staff recommends approval of the secondary plat approval with the following conditions: receipt. So just it's here in a letter form of what's going to be provided for the performance bond. But once we get it in hand, I'll sign off on the final document. So that's what's being brought to us tonight. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Hale now, if that's okay, so we can just.
This is Steve Hale, attorney for the Plan Commission. My report involves petition number 900-23 sub 4. The applicants petitioners are Beach Walk Property Owners Association, Inc., Beach Walk Conservation, Inc., and WP21 LLC. Those three entities are also the owners of the property. They are requesting secondary plat approval. I mentioned earlier this evening that secondary plat is the same as a final plat. It is the last step. So there's been, again, some use of the term final plat, but it means secondary plat. As I indicated earlier, your job is to determine that the plat that was approved by you as several meetings ago, and to consider adding as a condition Mr. York's proposed condition that approval is subject to his review and approval of the proposed performance bond in the dollar amount that he indicated, $312,225. As indicated earlier, you are required to consider if this secondary plat complies with the primary plat and complies with our subdivision ordinance, because it does comply occasions. That would be the addition of the requirement for the performance bond review and approval by Mr. York, or you can find that it does not comply with the primary plat. That's the substance of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. At this point, I'll take any questions or comments from the commission members regarding this petition.
Yes, without going into too much detail, Skylar, can you give us a little heads up on what a proposed performance bond is?
Yes. I was just about to actually. I was just about to. Yeah.
Yes. So you, I don't know if any, have you guys driven over or drove over to the site? They actually started construction. You might recall that I mentioned in my report that in 2022, the Plan Commission gave approval for a subdivision there. You might recall that they came through. It was called Beechwood Subdivision. That's important because they didn't fulfill secondary plat approval, but between primary and secondary of the original Beechwood Subdivision, they started construction, which is typically what we would like to see happen for, they're putting in the water main. They've paid for the water. I'm sorry, they've paid for water. They're putting in sanitation. Water you have to pay up front before they construct, because water constructs their own infrastructure. We pay for, you as a developer pay for the pipe. You pay for materials. Sanitation works differently. Sanitation works and you get plans approved and then construct it all, basically, and then they inspect. Correct me if I'm wrong, Shem. Please be prepared to jump in. I'm not an engineer, but I play one on TV. So the surety bond. So right now they're almost done with construction. So what they would like to do is go ahead and get secondary plat approval at this point in time and post a surety bond so that they can get that secondary plat approval. That assures that we're going to have a finished product, that the sanitary sewer will be completed. The surety bond does. So basically what they're bonding is the remaining construction. There's an issue. The catch is that once a sanitary lawn has been constructed, it has to lay there for 30 days before it can be tested. So that would basically push them a lot nearer to the end of our construction season here. So what they're proposing is that they post a surety bond to make sure that it gets constructed and completed to the sum of $312,225, which is enough to finish the construction. And then I would have that in a surety. If they don't finish the construction or it fails, we would have $312,225. We would basically access the bond and finish the project, basically. Yeah. I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is to finish it, but Shem, I'm talking out of turn. I don't want to put words in the mouth of the developer. So
Explained very well. Thank you. Mr. President. Commissioner, good evening. My name is Sham Khalil, Global Engineering and Land Surveying at 601 Franklin Street. In front of you, I think it's the actual requirements by the subdivision ordinance is section 4.05, which is after the approval of the construction plans for the primary plat. The developer actually will either post a bond or finish the construction, the infrastructure improvement, the public infrastructure improvement. So
in order to sell any lots, they have to post or construct the public infrastructure. If they fail to do so, the city is protected by this bond for all the residents that they will pay for this lot or sell or buy this lot and build a home. And they will have the public improvement that is being promised in the primary plat. So I just want to make sure that it's all the public infrastructure that is being set forth in the primary plat, it's included in this bond or proposed bond that will be, the city will be the holder for it.
So it's an insurance.
Yeah.
Or insurance, thank you. I don't know that I've run into that.
Yeah. It's under section 4.05. Yeah, and the subdivision ordinance. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Well, I mean, in all reality, we haven't really had a lot of large subdivisions come to us, which is good for us. We're having some growth. We're seeing some growth. So this is just a way to protect the city, to make sure that we're not on the hook for finishing roads, which is what the development agreement was, to make sure we're not on the hook for finishing these things for the previous one. With this one, the only thing left to finish is really the sanitary lines, and then they can, with this agreement, they can then start selling lots, and then they can finish the project. They don't have a road to build. The only other thing that they're lacking that they haven't constructed yet, but they will construct as they build the lots, are the sidewalks. So that's really, but those will build once they start the home construction.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mr. President.
Any other questions or comments? I'll open it up to the public. Any public comment regarding this petition? Skylar.
Oh, I forgot. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Skylar. Dwayne Perry, Mayor, Michigan City. Mr. President, commission members, I am also familiar with this project, having reviewed it with Planning Director Skylar York. And although it's not as big a part of our housing puzzle as the South Woodland Avenue project is, this is an important part of our plan to provide housing in key areas throughout the 23 square miles of Michigan City. This is a vital project, and it definitely satisfies a need. So once again, I hope that you will support this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Skylar.
You're welcome, man. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mayor Perry. Any other public comment? Hearing none, public comment is closed. So then we are ready for a motion regarding this petition.
Make a motion to approve secondary plat approval.
I'll make a motion we approve secondary plat approval with the condition that we have receipt and plan director approval of proposed performance bond.
I so second.
I'll call for the vote. When am I flipping that on? Mr. Balling.
Yes.
Mr. Dabney. Mr. Granquist.
Abstain.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Granquist. Mr. Klender.
Yes.
Mr. Latchford.
Yes.
Miss Mealy.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmer.
Yes.
Motion approved. Thank you. Thank you guys for hanging in there.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah. Thank you.
This now? Next item of business is a old new business. is it new business or old?
New business.
New business.
Sorry.
We have a resolution before us. Mr. Rampolla and Mr. Saranac are going to speak about it. So,
Yeah. I'm going to read the resolution by title, if that's acceptable, Mr. Rampolla. This is the resolution. This is resolution 3-2023 of the Plan Commission of Michigan, of the City of Michigan City, Indiana, approving a resolution of the Michigan City Redevelopment Commission designating and declaring certain areas of the City of Michigan City, Indiana, as economic development areas to expand the Southside Economic Development Area, consolidating the community center consolidating the community center number 1, expanded urban renewal area, and Southside Economic Development Area as an economic development area, expanding the consolidated economic development area, and consolidating the development plans for said areas. I'm going to have Mr. Rampolla come up and explain what all that means. Follow as part of this resolution. I handed out a map earlier just so that it kind of it'll help understand what exactly we're doing. Mr. Rampolla, floor's yours.
Thank you. So I'm Randy Rampolla with Barnes & Thornburg with offices in South Bend. And if I can just step back to what the Redevelopment Commission is doing is making amendments to its existing areas. And the process for that is that the Redevelopment Commission adopts a declaratory resolution, which they did in fact do to do that. The next step along the way then is to come before you, the Plan Commission, to have you adopt or consider for adoption your resolution that would indicate that what the Redevelopment Commission is proposing to do is consistent with the plan of development for the city. To the extent you adopt that resolution, then it next goes to the Common Council, which has as its obligation under the redevelopment statute to approve of your action. And then the final step in the process would be to go back to the Redevelopment Commission, at which time there's a public hearing, notice is provided to the overlapping tax units. And following that hearing, the Redevelopment Commission would consider the confirming resolution. So that, in a nutshell, is the overall process. What this resolution does, it's all in conjunction with the Station Block project, the mixed-use transit project. And the Redevelopment Commission is contemplating a financing that would use tax increment revenues from the north side area and the south side area, and then all of the TIF revenues that would be generated from the project itself to help pay for that financing. And that would be to provide an incentive to the developer to develop that project. And so as part of that, the recommendation of my firm, myself, Barnes & Thornburg, and Baker Tilly, the municipal advisor, is for the city to consider, Redevelopment Commission to consider consolidation of the north and south TIF areas. Many communities have done this in recent years. It helps with administration of the TIF areas, but it also provides the ability for the Redevelopment Commission to utilize going forward then increment in the entirety of the area. So for example, if there are projects in the south, if there's TIF available that from the former north area, that can be used there and vice versa. And so it provides greater flexibility for economic development going forward for the city. So the intent of the declaratory resolution is to do 3 things. One, as the title indicates, consolidate the north and south areas, designate the Station Block project site as a separate allocation area to capture the increment from that project itself for the period of years, and then extend the newly consolidated area along Michigan Boulevard to pick up that area of the city as well. And what the resolution does, it initially authorizes the expansion of the South Side Economic Development Area. That then provides the connecting bridge to the existing north side, the consolidated area. The transit area by the resolution, the declaratory resolution, is designated as a separate allocation area. That means it will have its own life of 25 years. So any increment that's being generated from that project would be available for the bond financing that is proposed to be issued. Then the resolution also then consolidates both the north and south side areas and recharacterizes the north area as an economic development area as opposed to what had been a redevelopment area. When the north side area was created back in the late 80s, the only option available to redevelopment commissions under the statute was to designate an area as blighted. And that was the designation that was given to the north side area. In the early 90s, the General Assembly saw fit to allow for the creation of economic development areas. And so 99% of the areas that are designated today, including the south side area, are designated as that. It relates to job creation, job development, and economic development generally. And so it is possible to consolidate the areas, and that's what the resolution does. Finally, the resolution then extends the consolidated area along that Michigan Boulevard that's evidenced on the map. I think Skylar indicated there are possibilities of projects along that area and development along that area such that they would be benefited by the designation. The resolution does make clear that all of the prior actions with respect to designating TIF allocation areas in the south and north remain unaffected by all of this, so that the existing TIF areas will continue and the existing TIF areas will expire at their normal expiration date. So we're not doing anything with the existing TIF areas. This, as I said, is all in conjunction with the proposed financing that will be up for council review and approval ultimately, and the redevelopment commission's review and approval as well, to be able to use the tax increment from both areas as it's consolidated. So that's a long explanation, but that is the declaratory resolution, and that's the resolution that would be before you for approval. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I don't know if Alan, if you want to add anything.
I would like to add two things. One thing is that when we originally put money up for the double track, all the counties had to put up a certain amount of money. We've pretty much already have a bond that is paid for out of the north and south TIF. The double tracking project at the time. Really, it's the only time I think we've ever done something that on that scale. Really, what we should do, I mean, on the recommendation of Mr. Rampolla and Andy Mauser, is consolidate these so that we're good, so that we're covered. And then secondly, the second part of that is that North TIF you're seeing in yellow here. It actually expires in 2027, so it will go away. So the new allocation area protects that station block and designating it its own TIF or allocation area, sorry. And then naturally, once that piece of TIF expires, it makes sense that we would then that's hence the expansion down Michigan Boulevard. It makes natural sense that we would then expand down Michigan Boulevard to try to see what we can to make sure that we're providing some incentives and tools in that area as well. So just some other things to add.
I might just add, I mean, in terms to what he just stated in terms of the use of the north and south TIF for the double tracking, when the double tracking financing was done, we concluded legally that under the statute, the redevelopment statute, the project was so transformational to the city that it would affect positively both the north area and the south area. And so we were very comfortable from a legal perspective being able to use the tax increment from both areas without consolidating them. Arguably, you can argue that this station block project will be similarly transformational, and perhaps you could similarly make the argument that you could use both without consolidating. But our recommendation was there will be projects going forward in the north and the south that may not be so transformational, but yet still need the incentives that TIF provide. And so if you don't consolidate, you may be limiting your ability to do smaller but equally as important projects in the community going forward. And so that's why our recommendation was to pursue the consolidation now to allow you to have that flexibility going forward into the future, particularly as he mentioned that, you know, a chunk of the north area will go away at some point. So it's just a little bit more background.
That's good. That's good. That's a great explanation.
This is Steve Hale, Planning Commission attorney. Members of the Planning Commission, I think I would just like to advise you that an appropriate motion would be to approve the Michigan City Redevelopment Commission's resolution number 4-23, resolution number 3-2023, both of which are attached in your materials. And that's what you're doing. You're to approve the Redevelopment Commission's resolution and adopt your own resolution, and that is what goes on to the City Council.
Any questions or comments from commission members regarding this resolution?
Can you provide some color on the consideration of including or excluding the East TIF and GAF TIF in the proposed expanded TIF?
So those TIFs are very different than the two TIFs we have on the north and the south. Those are really industrial TIFs. Specifically, GAF was created specifically for GAF. It was sometimes we refer to it as the GAF TIF. It was created as an incentive to get that specific building back in working order, and to incentivize that specific company really to be there at the time. And then the East TIF is very different in that it's very industrial. And we feel that the incentive there, we offer different incentives there. Really, we don't have a facade grant. We have facade grants in our North TIF. We're thinking maybe that could be expanded, things of that nature. But we don't offer facade grants in the industrial area. But what we do offer is that we can provide infrastructure and spec buildings, things of that nature. So just two different TIFs, and we thought, well, and I mean, on council, I kind of talked to Randy a little bit about that. They function very differently. They're both equally a TIF, and they both work the same way. But the functionality and the incentives we offer, and the, I would say, the developments that we go after or that come to us are very different. That was the thought process.
Any other questions or comments? I'll open it to public comment regarding this resolution. Any public comment? Public comment is closed. And we are ready for a motion to approve this resolution.
Yes, I make a motion that we approve and pass this on to the City Council. Resolution number 3-2023 as included with the Redevelopment Commission Resolution number 4-23.
Mr. Klinder, would that motion include a motion to approve the Plan Commission, or to approve the Redevelopment Commission resolution and adopt our Plan Commission resolution?
What I tried to say, yes, thank you.
I will second it.
Okay, hearing a motion and a second, I will call for the vote. Mr. Balling.
Yes.
Mr. Dabney.
Yes.
Mr. Granquist.
Yes.
Mr. Klinder.
Yes.
Mr. Latchford.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes.
And Mr. Zimmer.
Yes.
Motion carries. Motion approved. Thank you, Mr. Rampola, Attorney Rampola, and thank you, Attorney Sarnak. You worked really hard. Well done.
Okay.
That was a hard one to get. It's hard to get it all on one page without bringing a big page. So did the best I could with it.
Any other commissioner comments? Any other public comment related to this resolution or any other item related to planning? Hearing none, comment period is closed. And I would say that we are ready to adjourn until August 22nd in this room at 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone.